The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to the AdEspresso monthly webinar. This month we're going to be covering everything to do with Facebook Business Manager Mastery. So thanks for joining me today. Before we get going on this, just to let you know we are recording. I got an email from a few of you before this presentation saying, "Hey Paul, I can't make it all the way through. Can we get recording?" So go to webinar. We'll automatically send you a recording of this probably about an hour after the live session concludes there. We'll also put it on our website on adespresso.com. There's a webinar section there if you don't receive the recording for whatever reason there. During this webinar, my colleague Tori is joining me and she's going to be monitoring the questions. So please pop in any questions that you've got there. Also, just let us know where you are joining us from today and just make sure you just want to check if you can hear me okay, see my screen okay. So we're just going to look at any of the questions there. Yep, I can see that there's some people popping in there. So yeah, let's have a look. One from LA. You got Mexico, Iowa, Utah. So yeah, I know we had some emails before the session. Looks like people from all over the world joining us there. So thanks for joining me today. Just a little bit about myself. I won't go on about myself for too long, but I'm Paul. I'm the head of education here at AdEspresso. If you've got any questions about this webinar or anything to do with Facebook marketing or AdEspresso afterwards, just drop me an email, paul@adespresso.com, or you can reach us on Twitter at AdEspresso, and I usually monitor the Twitter account there. So let's dive in with a little brief overview of what we're going to be covering in this hour that we've got together. So first of all, just going to introduce what Business Manager actually is. And then from there, we'll look at why you should be using it. And this is quite useful, even if you don't deal with the Facebook account yourself. You can build a use case for your team on why they need to be switching to Business Manager. We'll then go through how to set up Business Manager, the different access levels that each of your employees can have. There's a little quirk that confuses some people between what's an employee and what's a partner, so we'll be covering that. Some agency tips. I know we've got a lot of agencies that are AdEspresso customers, so we're going to be giving some tips there specifically for you. Then security, real hot topic there. So we're going to go through security, how to audit your account. A little thing that can make your life easier, which is AdEspresso's Onboarding Hub. And then there's just a few bits and bobs at the end, which I put into a rapid fire round there. So let's have a little poll before we get too much further here. And what we're going to do on this poll, let me just go ahead and launch it there. So with the poll, just want to know about your level of Business Manager use. Is it a case that you don't use it at all at the moment? Do you use it, but you just don't really feel confident with it? You don't quite know what's going on? Or do you use it and do you feel like 100% confident with it there? So just drop in your results there. Just going to run this for a few more seconds and then we'll close the poll. So it looks like most of you have voted now. So a couple more seconds. Okay, we're just going to close out this poll and let me just share those results with you. So we've got a bit of a mix there. There's some people that don't use it at all, and so we'll be going through how to set it up for you begin the webinar. Probably a bit over half of you there use it but don't feel quite comfortable and confident with it, which is totally understandable there. And then some people feel like 20% of you feel confident there, but we'll have some advanced tips for you towards the end of the webinar, which I think you'll still find useful there. So let's move on from the poll and let's have an intro into what Business Manager is here. So one liner for you. This is from Facebook themselves. Business Manager is a place to manage everything in one place with Business Manager there. So everything there is in one place. Let's go and expand on that a little bit now. Again, another quote from Facebook here. They're saying that Business Manager allows advertisers to manage their marketing efforts in one place and share access to assets across their team, partner agencies, and vendors. So what we really want to do now to kind of explain why we need to be using Business Manager is let's have a little bit of history here, a little bit of context on Facebook. So back in the day when I started Facebook advertising a few years back, what you would find with most businesses is that you really didn't have much there in terms of like advertising assets. You probably had one Facebook page, probably one ad account, maybe a couple of employees. and that was really it. So there wasn't really much need for a business manager there. But things have changed a lot since then. So this is the left-hand column that you get on Business Manager. And this is really a good illustration of why we need one portal to handle all the assets and all your staff there. So you've got users, you've got people. So you might have your social media manager, you might have finance people, you might have advertisers. You've then got partners, so there could be various agencies that you're working with, both for your social media and for your advertising. You've probably got a range of Facebook pages. You might have multiple ad accounts. You can have mobile apps there. You could be having Instagram accounts. You can then have your product catalogs, like from Shopify or WooCommerce, which you can use for dynamic product ads. You've got your Facebook pixels, offline event sets. This is if you're tracking purchases offline, like if you're getting store visits there. Custom conversions. This is related to your pixels. ESGs, which are event source groups, which you'll be using for Facebook analytics. Other businesses might be sharing audiences with you. There can be then domains and block lists that you show your ads on, or rather you don't show your ads on there. And then you've got lead forms. You can be choosing who can access those leads there. There's then payments, and that's related to your actual ad account there. And then there's going to be security there. So we're going to be unpacking some of this during the webinar, but you can see there's like over a dozen things there that if you had this all in separate places there, you would never keep track of it there, especially if you've got multiple assets for each type there, which is why we need to have Business Manager. Second reason why we use Business Manager is if you go into your ad account there, in the left-hand corner, you have what I call the hamburger icon, those 3 lines. And if you click on that, you can see all the tools available. Now, I had a quick count up here. Depends how you define them, but there's something like 26 different tools. So again, having them all in one place is a lot easier than having them all spread out across Facebook. We can see if you've got dozens of types of assets, employees, agencies, 26 different tools, you need this in one central hub, and that's exactly what Business Manager is for you. So that gives you a very brief overview as to what Business Manager is. It's that portal, that one place for everything. Now, why do we need to use Business Manager? And like I said at the beginning, take note of this. Even if you're not actually dealing with the ad account yourself, this helps to then build a use case to take to your managers so that you can then start switching to Business Manager as soon as possible. So I've got a few tips for you here. The first reason is quite simply, most businesses now have to use it. Starting last year in October 2018, Facebook said, okay, if you want to use email custom audiences, this is where you upload like a customer list or a list of leads. And if you then want to target them or exclude them, you've got to be using Business Manager. This is part of their push towards user security and privacy. If you now log into Business Manager and you want to use these audiences, it just says, no, you can't. Sorry, if you log into an ad account that's not in Business Manager, it will say, no, you can't use those, switch to Business Manager. So you've really got to be using it. Second reason is it stops grey social media accounts. I was having a conversation end of last year with an agency, and he was saying the problem that he's got is his staff are all directly admins on Facebook pages. So they're having to hook up their personal Facebook accounts to all these assets. And that's a problem for them. His staff weren't comfortable doing this. And so what you then find is that the way agencies get around this, if they're not using Business Manager, or for brands themselves, is they start creating these grey accounts. So this is like a personal profile, but it's like a shared personal profile that everybody's using. Facebook say this is strictly against terms of service, that you have to be using a Facebook account that's connected to your real name, and you shouldn't be sharing passwords there. So it's just not a good option. I understand why people use it if they're not using Business Manager, because otherwise everything's hooked up to your personal account. But the best way, just switch to Business Manager. Third reason for this is you'll get better support from Facebook. If you get a major problem with your account, first thing Facebook's going to ask if you send them an email or jump on live chat is, are you using Business Manager? If you say no, then they're going to be, right, you need to switch to Business Manager. Now, good question for you. Would you rather be switching to Business Manager now where you can plan it out and do it when you've got time and resources? Or do you want to be doing it when you've got a crisis because something's not working for you? I think the answers there is going to be pretty obvious. Next reason Sooner you switch, the easier it's going to be. Like we looked at all those different assets that you got with pages, ad accounts, Instagram accounts, employees. For most businesses, this is only going to grow over time, and it's expanding quite rapidly for some businesses. So, it's going to be less pain if you switch now rather than in 6 months or a year's time or whenever. So just bite the bullet and switch now. Next reason, it's more secure. Now, we are going to be covering this in a little bit more detail later on because I think it's a really important aspect of Business Manager. But security is a big thing. I see people's Facebook profiles getting hacked more or less on a daily basis. So Business Manager is going to help you lock down all your business assets. And final reason, it's free and you get access to extra tools. You get some really nice enterprise level tools that even the smallest of advertisers can access. This is like a dashboard for Facebook analytics. We won't cover this in detail in this webinar, but basically there's a lot of extra tools and reporting that you can get access to if you're using Business Manager. You're going to be locked out of that if you're not using it. So great reason why you should switch your business there to Business Manager. Now, one little thing before we move on is I'm realistic. It's not the most intuitive, user-friendly tool out there. The UI and the complexity, it's not the easiest thing if you're a new advertiser. So I do understand why some people don't switch, but saying I would really bite the bullet, make that switch. Once you do, it's going to be easier for you going forward. Much easier to do now than delaying the inevitable. I'm sure it won't be long before Facebook will make it compulsory for all advertisers there. So I hope that gives you some reasons on why you should be using Business Manager. So many benefits there. So just kind of bite the bullet and see if you can get your team to switch. So if you decided that you are going to switch to BM, of course, what we need to do next is get this set up. So let's go through just an easy setup process for you. To begin at the beginning with this, you go to business.facebook.com/create, and you should see a screen like this. Blue button there, create account. It can be a fairly logical process now to go and create your business manager. So you go and press that button. What happens? Well, you go and enter your business name here, give it something sensible, put in your name and put in your business email address. And just like that, you press the next button, it's going to create your business manager account. So a couple of seconds and you've got it set up. Now, when you then log into your business manager, we then need to pull in some assets and really configure it. So to begin with, you're just not going to see much there. I've already got some assets in my business manager here. But if you don't have those, then what you would do is go to this business settings button here. There's also a gear cog anytime that you need to access your settings if you don't see this here. So just click on your business settings. And what's going to happen there is we're going to start pulling in our assets. You're going to be looking at your ad accounts, employees, and your Facebook pages as an absolute minimum. So I'm just going to talk you through this process that from that left hand, well, when you go into your settings there, what you'll see in the sort of top left hand corner is that menu there. And so like if you click on ad accounts, you then get three options for this add button there. You can add an ad account, which we're going to go through in a second. You can request access to an ad account, or you can create a brand new one. So we're going to be going through all three steps on those. So to add an ad account, this is where if you're moving your assets from like standalone assets to Business Manager, you need to pull those in there. So you create your Business Manager account, you get your ad account ID, and then you put that in there, and then you can then add an ad account and it's going to put it in there. You've obviously got to be an admin of that ad account to allow you to put it into Business Manager there. And it's a one-time process. So obviously make sure that you definitely 100% want to move that ad account in there before you move it in there. So once you do that, hey, you then got your ad account into Business Manager. Next thing you might want to do is that second option is to create a new ad account there. And so you're just going to be giving it a name, putting in your, like, who's it going to be advertising for, time zone and the currency there. And hey, you can just create an ad account. You can see all these things are very, very quick process to do there. There are some tips that I would give you for creating that new ad account there. Is choose your time zone and currency with care. They can't be changed later. If you try and change them later, what Facebook does is it shuts down the ad account and creates a new one there. So just make sure that you spend some time on this. Don't try and rush it where you're doing other things. Make sure you've got it all mapped out there. And then Facebook, I get asked a lot about the number of ad accounts that you allow. So Facebook, their message is that all new businesses can create one ad account. Once you've got active spend on there, you can create up to 5. Now, they then say that you can't have more than 5 ad accounts, but I jumped on a live chat with Facebook, and we won't go through all this, but basically what they were saying is that they use some common sense. If you've got all 5 ad accounts, they've got active spend, they can see that you're growing your business, then they're going to be proactive and they're going to add some more ad accounts for you. They're saying that there's not a way that you can actually request any more ad accounts. But generally, I'm sure if you hopped onto live chat and made a case there, or emailed them if you don't have live chat in your country, they are probably going to allocate some new accounts. But basically, what they're going to do is they're not just going to let you create hundreds of accounts unless they can see that you're actively using the ones that they've got. Also, they were saying here that you can kind of utilize old accounts. If you've got some that just haven't been used for a while, you could delete all that data and then just kind of reuse them. Not the best thing to do, but if you have to, then there is going to be that option. I mean, for most advertisers, 5 ad accounts should be more than enough there. So if you need to do that third option, which is request an ad account from another source, then this is what you're going to be doing there. You can type in that ad account ID and put a request in. Now, we are going to be covering this in more detail in the agency section in the second half of the webinar, because this is really important that you get this right. I just wanted to give you a quick overview now. So that was about how we can pull in an ad account, create a new one, or request access to one. Same process there if we want to do with Facebook pages, that from that menu on the left hand side, we click on pages, click on the add button, same 3 choices here. So there's no point in me going through these steps because it's exactly the same options there as an ad account. And you can already see that, it gets easier and easier. Once you start getting up to speed with one asset, adding more assets, same process there. Now, if you want to, well, there's a little tip about Business Manager there. I'm not quite sure what it is, but to have a Business Manager account, you have to have a Facebook page. So if you've already got an existing one, pull that in there to start with. If you don't have a Facebook page, just create a new one there. It doesn't really matter if it's active. Like I've got a Business Manager and I'm only really using that to advertise for other businesses at the moment. But you just create a Facebook page there and it can just sit there as a dormant page. But it's just one of the little quirks of setting up Business Manager. Another asset you might want to put in is your Instagram accounts. Probably already know this as an advertiser, but you are going to need an Instagram business account. You can switch this over in the Instagram app very, very quickly. They're usually nagging you all day long anyway to go and switch it over, but basically you've got to have an Instagram business account, hook it up to your Facebook account, and then you can just log in here and you can put in that Instagram account. So once you've done that with all your assets, you should get a nice little message from Facebook there. Lots and lots of green ticks and some green hills here saying, hey, you've gone and completed your Business Manager basics. So we want to make sure that we've got an admin, we've got a Facebook page, and we've got an ad account in there. And then you could be looking at all the other options there. So what we've done in this is gone through some of the kind of technicalities of the setup there, how you can go and put in some assets there. But what I want to do now is just for a minute, take a step back there and just look at that kind of big picture, because what we need to do with Business Manager is look at the structure that we're creating there. So we've got about how to deal with all these individual assets, but how do we actually utilize those in an account? And Facebook have provided a really good diagram here that what you've got there is you've got your Business Manager admins, you've then got your employees, and then they can mix and match the assets there. Like we were discussing earlier, there's about a dozen different types of assets. And so what we can then do is allow access for different employees and admins to different tools. So before we dig into that too much, let's just discuss the difference between an admin and an employee. Quite straightforward. An admin can add and remove their employees and also like any partners there. They can change all the settings and they can pull in all the different assets. And then your employees, they can actually use those assets there. So they can view the settings, but they can't change them. And they can be assigned on a one-to-one basis to pages, ad accounts, and some other assets there. So I think a good way to illustrate this is with a couple of examples. And this is quite a common setup in, kind of medium-sized businesses, that you've probably got a social media manager or some people on the marketing team. And you might give them admin rights to the Facebook page. So they're controlling the Facebook page, but you don't really want them messing up the ad account. So you'd probably just give them the analyst rights there. And then don't really need a finance roles because they're doing social media. They're not getting involved in that side of the business there. And then if you've got a business advertiser there, you would give them advertisers rights to your Facebook page. There's a few little things they need to do there, but they're not really actively posting to your page. So you can make sure that they're not going to mess about and do some posting there. They would need admin rights to your ad account. And maybe they have an analyst role for finance, just so they can keep an eye and make sure that billing's being processed properly for the ad account, but you don't want them kind of getting involved in the billing, all the settings there. So this is where you can see some of the advantage of Business Manager, is that different people, we can assign them different roles and we can keep track of all the assets there. So with adding those employees into Business Manager, there's a few little things here. The first is that they do need a personal Facebook account. Always remember with this that they don't have to put details on there. They don't have to be an active Facebook user. Just create an account. That's all they really have to do on there. Great thing about using Business Manager is that their colleagues can't see anything on their account, on their personal profile, unless, of course, they've shared it and made it public there. And this is one of the problems with the old school way of administering all your assets, is that you basically had to friend each other so that you could then find each other to then get them onboarded on your ad account. And sometimes, there'd be kickback. Employees want to keep their private life personal, and then you'd be like, oh, you got to go and friend your manager on Facebook so that they could then give you access. And that's then people would then set up these grey accounts, which is against Facebook terms of service and caused a lot of problem. I actually had it with one account where they were using these grey profiles, and Facebook locked them out and said, hey, you're not allowed to do this. And for several days, they couldn't access any of their assets. So there's a real reason why you don't want to be using these grey accounts there. So it's not just theory, it's really practical reasons for using Business Manager. So the main roles that you can be having there, fairly straightforward. If you've got a Facebook page, the roles that you've got there within Business Manager, 5 different levels. You've got an admin, which can do nearly anything, an editor, which can do most things but can't change the settings, a moderator, this is where they're not actually posting new posts, but they can be like responding and deleting to comments there. Page advertiser, this is what your Facebook advertisers are going to be needing generally, so that they can then create ads and view the insights. And then an analyst, if you don't want anybody to be actively involved on the page, but that, sometimes you've got stakeholders in the business that just want to be able to see what's going on there. Facebook ad account, you just have 3 roles on there: full admin, advertiser, and then you've got that analyst role on there. And then finance roles, you've got the editor and the analyst, all pretty straightforward there. These are all available within the in the Facebook help docs if you need to find any information there. So something that I haven't touched on so far with people is when you look at your left-hand menu, you've got 2 different options here. You've got people and you've got partners. And this causes a lot of confusion sometimes. So just want to spend a minute or 2 explaining the difference between these. So an employee of your business, basically in Business Manager, you have an employee there, and then you take your assets and then you assign them to employee. Like we saw that you could be saying somebody's an admin on a Facebook page, an advertiser on the ad account, and maybe an analyst on finance there. Pretty straightforward. With a partner, there's an extra step. So what you do as your Business Manager admin is you take your assets and then you assign them to the business manager of the agency. So you're passing them on to that agency, and then they assign them internally. Now, where this can really help you is, so you're dealing with a fairly large agency there. They might have several staff. Some of these staff are going to be having different roles, and they might come and go over time. So rather than if you had onboarded them as employees, the agency is going to be saying, hey, you've got 5 staff, please give them XYZ assets there. We can make sure that we just assign them to the agency, let them assign them internally there. Also, I mean, if you are working with a partner that maybe they're just like a solo business there, the distinction's a bit more subtle there. But it is a little bit easier if you are like an agency, even if you're just a one person agency, if you're working with a brand, it's better to be a partner rather than employee. It just means everything's in your business manager rather than when you switch between different brands and to switch between business managers, but a bit more subtle. It's really when you're working with a large agency with several employees that it helps there. Now, from an agency point of view, one thing that catches a lot of people out, and it catches me out all the time, is that if a brand has assigned assets to your business manager, they just sit there and you then have to assign them to yourself or to your employees. So, what happens sometimes is a brand has said to me, "Hey, Paul, I've assigned these ad accounts to you." I'm like, "Hey, I can't find them. I can't access them." And it's because they're sitting in my business manager and they need to be assigned to myself because I'm actually an employee of that business manager. So what happens is someone shares the asset with you. Say like they've shared an ad account, you then click on the ad accounts, and then what you would do is you would find that ad account, and then you would then assign it to yourself here. You add that person, and you add yourself or another agency colleagues that you've got there. So that's one little thing that if you're an agency, make sure you're aware of that. You have to assign the assets to somebody once they've been shared with you there. So we're going to move on to some agency tips now. But before we do, just going to just connect with Tori and see if we've got any quick questions or any feedback from our viewers so far. So anything we've got to cover, Tori?
Hey, Paul. Yeah, we've had a couple of questions here. Jim had asked what were gray ad accounts, so maybe you can cover that again really quickly for everyone who might have missed that one.
Sure. So a grey ad account is a personal Facebook profile, but rather than it being connected to your name, and obviously you're going to be putting your personal stuff on there, and only you would have the password. This is where to businesses to be able to access like ad accounts and their Facebook pages. They create these fake personal profiles, so they give it a fake name. They're not putting any pictures on there, and they're sharing the passwords around. It's against Facebook terms of service, and it also causes problems that I've seen it where people in two different offices try and log into the same account, and Facebook thinks this is a security violation, like somebody's trying to hack a real account, locks it down, and then they can't access their assets. And like I covered earlier, Facebook do pick these up every so often and just shut them down, and then you get locked out of all your assets. So that's what a grey account is, and you definitely shouldn't be using it. Always use legitimate profiles. And we use Business Manager, so it separates business from personal there.
Awesome. Awesome. Another thing, I've seen a couple of questions. We will be recording this as well. As Paul mentioned, you're going to get an email about an hour after the webinar ends. We're also going to have that inside of the AdEspresso University section under webinars and on the YouTube channel for AdEspresso.
Great. Okay, I'll crack on now, and we're just going to change just kind of change like focus a bit to some agency tips, because I know that we've got a lot of agencies as AdEspresso customers and on this webinar. So it's really about mapping out the structure before you start getting involved with your brands here. Little advice from Facebook. What they recommend is that your clients set up everything in their business managers. And then what happens is once the clients have set it up, is that they then go and assign it to you. So really important distinction. And I know a lot of agencies, they don't want to be doing this for several reasons. We'll cover some now. So what sometimes happens is that agencies go and set up the assets for clients, sometimes because it's easier, that the client struggles to do it. Sometimes there's other reasons that they want control over everything, but it's really bad idea. Much better jumping on a call with the brand and talking them through on a screen share how they can set up their assets. Reasons for this. First reason is it's ethical. A business should never lose access to their own assets there. I know it's tempting as an agency sometimes to think, hey, if I go and own their assets, then they're going to have to keep me on board. And maybe I don't need to let them to see exactly what I'm doing on their ad account or how much I'm spending. It's a bit like back in the day when websites were quite new, is that agencies used to register the domain names, and then like the brand couldn't ever move agency. But it's a really bad idea. It's just not ethical to do that there. Also stop, say, disputes escalating. I do some agency work, and sometimes a client or an agency, things just don't quite work out there. If the client's got their own assets, then it's pretty easy to walk away. Either side can say, okay, this isn't quite working. I want to change direction. Fair play, let's go and do this. If the agency owns the assets, then you start getting brands having to take legal advice to try and get hold of their assets there. It gets very, very messy there. Also, an agency, some agencies like to control the ad spend there, and some brands like this as well, but it can cause real problems for your agency if you do this. So an example, one of my coaching clients, I don't actually run their ads, but a coaching client, they are a well-known high street brand. They were running lots of ads through their agency before Christmas, and so their agency controlled the ad account. The agency was paying for the ad spend. Now, the brand like this, because it made billing easier, their billing department just got a monthly invoice from the agency. The agency loved it because they basically, had a hold over the brand that was very difficult for them to shift ad accounts. I would imagine, I'm not sure the exact amount, but they probably ran up a six-figure ad bill before Christmas. A week after Christmas, they went into administration. That's basically going to bankrupt most agencies in the process. So although it's very tempting as an agency, just think about the implications if you actually have the ad account and run the billing for the brand there. My advice is never get involved in billing there. So some tips for agencies on how to request access to the assets. So like we were saying, you get the brand to go and set up their own assets. You then need to pull them into your agency business manager. So we covered this earlier that you've got the three ways. We're not going to be creating a new account because the ad account because it always exists. So how do we go and request these assets from the brand there? Two ways to do this. First way is that you send a request from your business manager to the brand. So what you do is you find their ad account ID. They should be able to go and give this to you. You then put it into that request there. You then request a certain level. Do you want to be an admin, advertiser, an analyst like we covered earlier? And they then just check the requests in Business Manager and away you go. Great in theory. In practice, I've never got this to work yet. And this is a common problem that agencies are finding is that they send those requests there and they just don't seem to be arriving there for the brands there. So the first method, generally don't advise it. In theory, it's the easiest way to do it. In practice, it doesn't seem to work. So what I recommend is a second method, which is where the brand goes and assigns assets from their end to the agency. So rather than agency requesting, the brand is sending the assets there. So what they would do on there is on that left-hand menu, go to partners there, and they're going to need your business manager ID. So what you would do as the agency is you can go into your business info and it's going to have the business manager ID there. I've just blanked mine out for privacy, but you find that also generally when you're logged in, your URL for business manager at the end of it is going to have the business manager ID. It's generally in quite a few places in your business manager, but you make a note of that. And then what you would do is send that to your brand, that client there. And then what they're going to do is when they've clicked on that sign a new partner, they put in your business partner business ID. And from there, it's then they're then going to assign different assets and different admins. So they can say, right, this agency, they can have this ad account, and I'm going to give them advertiser role, and I'm going to give them access to my pixels and my Instagram accounts and pages at different levels and so on. And they send that across there. So although this is a little bit more work for the client, I find it's 100 times more reliable. So I recommend that you do this. Obviously experiment and see if you can get the first request method working, but I just haven't got it to work there. So this is the way that I recommend agencies do it. So very simple recap there is get the brand to set up all their assets. So they will need some hand holding, get on a video call with them, talk them through it, and then show them how to go and share the assets into your business manager. And from there, you then assign them internally like we covered previously. You just send them to each employee there. And once you've got a good structure there, it's going to be a really, really easy relationship with the client going forward there. So hope you found those agency tips there. If you've got any questions, put it in the chat box there. Myself and Tori will get to them at the end of this webinar. So a few other little things to consider here. So security. Within the left-hand column, you've got a security center. And like I said at the beginning of this webinar, one of the great things about Business Manager is it's going to make it easier to secure your accounts here. So going through this, it mentions here, set up two-factor authentication for Business Manager. Let's just expand on this for a minute. So two-factor authentication for your Facebook account. What this means is that to log on to Facebook, as well as having your password, you also need your device. So it means that when you log onto a new device for the first time, Facebook sends a code, it's usually to your cell phone there. Can be like by an SMS message or within the Facebook mobile app. There's a little code generator in the settings. You generate that code, you put that into when you log in on that new laptop or whatever there, and then you can access Facebook. So secure because it means that somebody can't just hack your account with the password. They actually need the physical device as well. So I would recommend everybody uses this. I'm sure we see on Facebook all the times, like messages from friends going, "Hey, ignore that spammy message you got yesterday. My account got hacked." It's so easy to hack if somebody just needs your password. Two-factor authentication should always be used. So in Business Manager, what you get there is an option is you can require it for just admins or you can require it for everybody. I would require it for everybody there. Now, I put a little poll in our AdEspresso University group. This is our private Facebook group for customers. And I found that about 45% of our customers, which are all advertisers, don't use two-factor authentication. I mean, I'll be blunt. It's just crazy not to be using it these days. Your account is at high risk. Switch two-factor authentication on. The way that Facebook does it is it doesn't really hassle you. It only needs that code every time you log onto a new device. It doesn't need it every single day or every single login there. If you're an agency, definitely be using it there. Because you might have several employees. Are they keeping their account secure? Who knows? This is going to make sure that they do. If you're a brand, then you need to be making sure that your agencies are using this. And yeah, as an agency owner, it's a big risk. If one of your employee accounts gets hacked and they've got admin privileges to brands, just think of the damage that could be caused there. How much is the brand then going to sue your agency for there? Prevent it all with two-factor authentication. It's an absolute no-brainer to really want to do that there. Next kind of security tip for your Business Manager is Facebook strongly recommend that you have two admins there. Simple reason, if one admin leaves your business or their account gets, hacked or deleted or whatever, then the other admin can carry on. If you end up with just one admin and they lose their account or they leave the business, you then have like this zombie account and nobody can access the assets. It's an absolute pain to get Facebook to reallocate admins there. So always have two admins there if you can. So you basically, what you do on there is just go into that standard left-hand menu, add another admin, or if you click on this in your security center, it will go and say, hey, right, enter an email address where you can add that other admin there. Very, very simple. Now, onto the kind of more of the auditing part here. There's a great Facebook advertiser called Andrew Foxwell, and one thing that he recommends is he's kind of come up with this name of Business Manager Champion. It's not an official job title, but you want to appoint somebody to be looking after your business manager, whether you're a brand or an agency. So what you want to do is find your geek on the team there that just loves messing about with business manager and settings there. And it doesn't need to be, necessarily like a manager, but you just want somebody that's going to really take an active role in this. And so what they'll be doing is they need to be doing a monthly audit on your business manager. What are they going to be looking for? Well, they need to see if any employees have left. In marketing agencies, this is quite common. Are there any old agencies accessing these assets? Are there any audiences or pixels being shared with third parties? We basically go through that. And the great thing about Business Manager is all these assets in one place. Whereas before, if we had to go and find, 3 ad accounts and 5 pages in Instagram, you'd never keep track of who was accessing what. It's very insecure. Now you just need to go into Business Manager and just go through everything there. But it's only going to be secure if you are doing regular audits there. Sometimes I found that ex-agencies are still having pixels shared with them, and then they're using that to advertise for other clients and basically use your customer lists and all sorts of things. So you want to make sure everything's locked down. What I find in practice is whenever I take on a new client, very high chance that I find old employees and old agencies having access there, and pixels and audiences being shared all over the place. So yeah, brander agencies, you want to be doing that auditing there. If you got to this stage and you're thinking as an agency, okay, this is quite complex to get my client to then go and share their assets with you. And, like I said, you really got to hop on a lot of times onto a video call with them. Then if you are an AdEspresso user, we do make it super simple for you because Massimo, who's our general manager and founder of AdEspresso, used to be an agency owner and he went through this pain himself. So that's why we created the Onboarding Hub. Very simple tool within AdEspresso. It's basically there's a form that you fill in. You go, hey, I'm from agency X, and this is the assets that I need so that they're expecting it. And then you put in the agency business manager details that they're going to connect to. And maybe you want to put in like you need to access their CRMs, things like MailChimp or HubSpot so that you can sync their custom audience, their email lists to Facebook custom audiences. So basically fill in a form that's going to take you like under a minute to do. And then it just sends them an email. They then click on that, log in. It like creates a little dashboard on AdEspresso, and then they can just connect up their assets. Hey, presto, done. So rather than that real pain point that you've got importing the assets there, it's going to be done for you with a couple of clicks and a form to fill in. So we make your life a lot simpler there. Now, rapid fire round, like I said at the beginning, this is just some odds and ends that I couldn't find other places for. So this is kind of the last section of the webinar, but some useful little tips here. I've got 6 or 7 tips for you. First is that the top of your business manager, you get a universal search bar. So if you're trying to find anything, it can find your pages, ad accounts, campaigns, ad sets, ads, help guides sometimes. Really useful. So if you're working with lots of accounts, lots of assets, universal search bar, going to make your life a lot easier. A lot of people kind of miss it. It just sits there at the top there. It can be extremely useful. For kind of larger enterprise level clients, one of the most common questions I get asked is about the billing. That it's quite painful where you have to like enter your credit card and you get billed like every so often. That they really need to work towards like monthly invoicing. So is it possible? Well, yes, in some cases. So invoicing from Facebook, you then get 30 days from the date to pay the invoice. And it occurs at the business manager level, not at the ad account level. So if you've got a brand and for some reason you've got several ad accounts, that you can aggregate that spend to allow you to get invoicing. To get it, you're going to need at least $10,000 or local currency equivalent, like in the UK, I think it's like £10,000, probably 10,000 euros, I'm guessing. So you need to be spending that per month for at least 3 months. And you also need to be assigned a Facebook ad account rep as well. So that's what Facebook's looking for before you can apply. Now, Facebook state that you can't go and ask for an ad account rep, that they'll be proactive and decide if they're going to assign one to you. A bit like requesting extra ad accounts, I'd say, reach out to them on live chat and say, if you are spending this amount, and say, can I have an ad account rep? But they are pretty strict about this. They're not going to do anything unless they can see that you're a serious established advertiser there. But if you've got a large brand, it's something they can do. Certainly some of my clients that spend, maybe they spend like 100,000 per month, then we use that invoicing. It just makes life a lot easier. You don't want to be hooking that up to a credit card there. Third tip for you is in your business manager, I guess a bit like on Facebook, you can give yourself a profile picture and a cover photo. This is going to make life easier, especially if you're then an agency working with other clients, or you're just interacting with other employees and admins. Otherwise it gets very hard when you've got multiple employees and business managers to find which one's which just from ID numbers and names. Much easier to have that little visual representation. Not going to make the world a difference, but for something that takes a minute to do, definitely worth doing there. Next tip is give your ad account a name. By default, it comes with a long number. Again, if you just got that one ad account, no big deal, you can find it. If you're dealing with dozens of ad accounts, I've got something like 20, 30, 40 ad accounts in my business manager. It's much easier to find them by name rather than these random 13-digit numbers there. So make life easier and give them a name there. Fifth tip there, if you're dealing with lots of assets again, you can favorite them. You can put a star by them, and there's going to surface your favorites at the top there. So like I was saying, where I've got like dozens of ad accounts, I can just put my top 2 or 3 at the top there as favorited ones. Another tip here. This is quite rare, but I saw this recently that Facebook can actually disable a business manager account, not just an ad account as a whole. So what that means is this goes back to our agency section. That if you're an agency, another good reason why you shouldn't be setting up the ad account. If you've got a high risk advertiser, it can't just be that they're doing sometimes supplements, sometimes weight loss, that those sort of things that Facebook doesn't really like, sometimes allows, sometimes doesn't. What advertisers tempted to think is like, okay, I can just get that ad account shut down and set up a new one. But sometimes Facebook can actually take the nuclear option and just shut down that business manager there. So obviously if you're an agency and you're just having the assets shared with you, no big deal. But if you were creating all those accounts, maybe you've got 6 different brands in there, and one of those is doing something that's a little bit of a grey area on Facebook. If that got shut down, that could mean then you can't advertise for any of those other businesses. So another reason why you should let the clients set up their own ad accounts and all their assets there. So don't be scared by this. This is quite rare, but it can happen in some cases. Last tip that we got here is ad accounts can't be removed. One of those little quirks about Business Manager is that you create these assets, you then can't delete those ad accounts afterwards. And going back where we said that you want to be really intentional about creating ad accounts, you've got to be thinking what currency, what time zone, what name. Just don't go and create 10 ad accounts for the sake of it there, because over time this is going to aggregate more and more accounts, and that can get messy there. So that's why we start off with one account. If you need another couple, add them when you need it, but just don't go and create loads of spare accounts for the sake of it, because otherwise it's not the end of the world, but just makes things a little bit messier going forward there. I did have a question before this webinar about how to do some spring cleaning on your Business Manager account, and yeah, it can be quite tricky with the ad accounts there. You just can't remove them. So that covers the main details on Business Manager there. You might want to have a little recap on this. So if you prefer this in written form, I've done a blog post on this, especially if you want to share it with other people that don't want to wade through, a 45-minute webinar. Then blog post there, just go to adespresso.com/blog. There's a search bar and you can search for it, or the full URL here. But yeah, I wrote this recently on the benefits of using Business Manager, and then we go through a step-to-step guide by setting them up. So that's a nice little thing there. Another tool for helping you there is Facebook Blueprint. So Facebook Blueprint is the free and official training guides there from Facebook. Great thing about them, they tend to be kept up to date. And obviously, because they're written by Facebook, they are going to be very accurate there. So it's worth creating, if you haven't already, a Facebook Blueprint account. Just go to facebookblueprint.com. In the search for courses bar there, just type in Business Manager. It will find it for you. You can go through that. It says 15 minutes. It's more like about 5 minutes to go through, but that's a nice overview for you there. So I hope you found that useful. I know there's a lot to take in, but I think you've seen that once you kind of map out a strategy, break it down to steps, it's quite easy to do. And there's a lot of benefits on why you need to be switching to Business Manager now, and then why you need going forward that Business Manager champion so that you can set up your security and audit all your assets there. So any questions on this, please put them in the chat box. We're going to go through them in a second. Just before we finish up, if you do want some personal help there with your ad accounts there, with your Facebook marketing or with your Google ad strategy, we can do that help for you. Within AdEspresso, we can do 10-minute tactical reviews. This is where we do a screencast of a particular campaign, and we can say, okay, this is how you need to optimize. This is how you can achieve your objectives. Have a quick look at your ads, your audiences, your landing pages there. For AdEspresso customers, it's in the services tab. If you're not a customer yet, you can take out a free trial. And also you can find out more details at adespresso.com/tour. We do one-to-one power hours. And this is one of my favorite things. Did a couple of these yesterday where we can actually map out an advertising strategy for you. This is rather than tactical strategic, we can come up with a marketing plan for you. It's one-to-one, so we answer any questions that you've got there during these power hours. We can do it for Facebook, or we've got some really good Google Ads experts now, so we'll cover whatever you want on those. Again, adespresso.com/tour. This is for AdEspresso customers only at the moment, but you can take out that free trial, or if you're in the UK, we are trialing opening it up to everybody there with our open marketplace. And finally, we do provide a concierge service. This is kind of like a bit like an ad agency, but we really cut it down. We're just optimizing your Facebook or your Google ads there. We're not doing landing pages and websites and all things like that. So we're not competing against agencies there, but we can, if you're kind of at that stage where you're going from being a solo brand and you're not quite ready to take on the agency yet, you can use us as a stepping stone and we can build you up there. So again, adespresso.com/tour, and we can give you some more information there. So thank you all for joining me for this webinar. I can see that we've got a few hundred on this one. I think this is one of the largest audiences that we've got, and I'm very impressed that you've stuck with it, because I know it's quite a technical thing here, but it's definitely something that you want to get to grips with to improve your Facebook advertising. So we've got lots of questions coming in, so I'm going to open this up to Tori now, and we can dig into some of your questions.
Hey, Paul, I think in addition to having the most attendees, I think we also have the most questions we've ever had during a webinar too. So we'll go ahead and get started there. First one is going to come from Marissa. Marissa asks, if you're not running ads on Facebook, does it make sense to switch to Business Manager?
It depends what you're doing there. If you've just got a Facebook page and maybe 1 or 2 employees, then there might not be any real urgency to do it. But if you've got more employees, or you start doing with agencies, it's certainly going to make life easier on there. A company I used to work for, they don't do much with ads there, but where they've got like individual stores and lots of employees, it does create sometimes problems if they are trying to like not use Business Manager. You get all these grey accounts and that. So there is some benefit, but not quite as much as if you were using ad accounts as well.
Awesome. Next one is from Abby. Can you add groups into Business Manager or just pages?
So just pages. Yes, you can't do groups on there. You can link a group to a Facebook page, but I don't think you can pull them into Business Manager. No, I haven't seen them in there. So you would still do it the traditional way that the employee would get, you would grant them access, like their personal account into a group. Although saying that, you can actually then you can paste in a group as the business. So I'm thinking whether you could give somebody maybe page access through Business Manager. They might be able to do it. I'd have to investigate more. But yes, you certainly don't have a group as an asset in Business Manager, but there might be a way to like get a employee access to the group via the Facebook page. But so you'd have to do some experimentation on that, I think.
All right. Next one, is there a limit of accounts that I can manage through Business Manager?
I'm not aware of any kind of limit on there, saying there's a limit on creation for like ad accounts there, but really for managing it, I think you could put in as many as you want. I've certainly got a few dozen assets in mine, and really that's what Business Manager is designed for. So I don't think there's any practical limit on there. I mean, we certainly have a few clients which are franchised stores, and so we see this certainly in the US, where a franchise store might have 100 locations. And so that's what Business Manager is designed for. I think we had a request the other day from somebody with 300 locations. So they had like 300 ad accounts, 300 Facebook pages, and probably something like 1,000+ employees. And that's where you need Business Manager. And that's certainly where you need to be using Business Manager from day one. Because, yeah, I've got a prospect where they're looking at switching 80 different stores to Business Manager. And, I don't envy them that task. That's going to be a nightmare to set up. So again, why you want to be setting up Business Manager from the beginning. But I haven't seen any limit. I certainly don't think there's any practical limit. It might max out like 10,000, but I think you're fine with a few hundred assets.
Great. It looks like we have 2 or 3 requests to review those permission levels. Is there any way maybe we could back up to that slide and go over those again?
Oh, let's see if we can get into these slides here. So I think this was a little bit earlier on in the webinar. Yeah. Let's go and find these different levels. Okay. Yes, let's go and share these ones here. So this is all, if you go through the Facebook Blueprint guide that I linked to at facebookblueprint.com, this maps them out a lot more detail. So I would say that you're worthwhile going through these. But yes, you've got the 5 different roles. This is exactly the same if you're not using Business Manager. You've got those 5 levels. Same for Ad Account, that you just have 3 levels there. And then Finance, you've got a couple of roles there. Okay, so yeah, hopefully that goes and helps you there. But go and look in Facebook Blueprint, or just go and Google it. If ever I need to find any help files from Facebook, I generally just put it into Google, like Facebook ad account permissions, and you usually find the link to the Facebook official docs pretty easily there.
All right, perfect. Nancy asked if it's just her, no employees, does she need a business manager account?
It's still a good idea to go and be able to have everything in one place there. So I think it's good. And I think it's good to be proactive on this, because then if you are then getting an agency to work on something, like if you decide that they need to just work on your Facebook page or Instagram or whatever, that's going to help. Also, like we saw with the ad accounts there, one of the tips I shared is that if you are using email custom audiences for advertising, which most advertisers are now, or they will in the future, then you have to use Business Manager there. So yes, I would say it's worth switching to Business Manager. Not so urgent, but I would get it done if you can there.
Okay. Along that same vein, we also have a couple of questions here of if you can create a new business manager if for some reason you incorrectly set yours up.
You can have more than one business manager. Yes, that is possible there. So it's neater normally to keep in one, but there are times when maybe you've got a very big business and you need to separate things out into like different like continents or something. Or yeah, you just need a backup one. You can go and set up more than one business manager.
Right. Next question. If you're an agency, is it best to create an ad account for each client you work with?
No, the brand themselves, each brand should set up their ad account. But yes, I mean, you know, if for some reason you shouldn't, but if you were setting them up for the brands, then you'd want a separate one there, because they're all going to have separate pixels, separate audiences there. And we certainly see like some of the more advanced features, like doing the Facebook analytics and Facebook attribution tool. You would want to be able to separate out the different brands. Also, things like some of the powerful lookalike audiences now. Facebook's got what they call value-based lookalikes. This is where they look at all the sales data from that brand and they can create a lookalike based on just that. Now, if you had several brands merged together in the same ad account, you just wouldn't create very good lookalikes at all. So yeah, always separate out your brands, 100%. Another reason as well is, imagine one of your brands, like we said, might be on the fringes of Facebook ads policies, or Facebook sometimes just disable accounts at random. I've had 100% legit advertisers where they've lost access to their account because the Facebook review bot just goes a bit crazy. So, you know, if you've got like 6 advertisers all in one ad account, then that's it. All your other brands are going to be taken down. And the first question they're going to ask you as an agency is, why are you putting everything through one ad account? And they would just sack you or probably sue you. So yeah, always separate it out. Always make sure the brands are in control of their assets.
Awesome. We have 3 or 4 comments. Thank you so much for your time. It's a great job, Paul. Thanks for teaching us. Let's see here. Next one. Are you able to transfer business manager ownership?
Sorry, can you just say that last bit again?
Sorry. Are you able to transfer business manager ownership?
Sort of. Well, I mean, what you would do on there is you would add another admin and then remove yourself. So that's generally the way to do that. Yes. So you could do that there. You are certainly better off mapping out everything in advance and have like the business owners or the person that's really going to be there long term to set it up there. You know, I do see these problems where sometimes you get like interns, they're like the ones really keen on it. So they set everything up and then they leave and then other people can't access it. So best is for the intern to go to the, you know, the sales director or the CEO or whatever, get them to set it up, talk them through it, and then you've got that stability, and make sure you start adding other admins. Yeah, you can sort of swap it that way. I mean, you could also, if you did need to move an account between business managers, you can then go and assign another business manager, give them full admin rights, and then remove yourself. So there isn't like an easy built-in transfer option. You can't press a button that says, I'm transferring this account from myself to another person. But there are ways to do it by giving them access and removing yourself, or swapping it between business managers.
Great. I have another question here. My agency has created ad accounts on behalf of the client until recently. Is there a way to transfer ownership of these ad accounts to a different business manager account?
Yeah, so I think like we were just discussing that I would be trying to do it where you then go and assign them as an admin and then go and swap it off over to them. So yes, you then need to swap some of the other things. So it's worth experimenting with one of those and trying it. So it's not always that easy to do, but I think that you should be able to go and swap it over. Or certainly just going forward that you want to be on new accounts to make sure that the brand sets those up there.
Last question here. I'd love to know the best practices to share saved audiences between ad accounts.
So, saved audiences. You can certainly do it with custom audiences. You can save them between accounts. Just trying to think where you could do this with saved. I'm not sure. I don't think you can swap saved audiences, but certainly custom audiences you can swap. That you basically go into your audience list in Ads Manager. Click on it. There's then an option to go and share it, and then you choose who to share it with. If it's another one in Business Manager, then it's pretty easy to assign it. If it's outside that, you put in the ad account ID and you can share it across. Now, this can be pretty useful because it's a safe way of sharing audiences. So what it means is, say you've got an email custom audience. If you then share it with another advertiser, they can't see inside that audience. So it means they can't go and harvest all the emails and go and mess things up. So I've got a client doing this at the moment. They've got a collaboration with another brand, and so we wanted to get hold of the audiences that the other brand's using, and so we just got them to share them with us. But I guess once you've got those shared custom audiences, then you could then create a saved audience from that pretty easily. One thing you can't do with a shared custom audience is then create lookalikes from it. So what you would actually do to use that lookalike is you go to the original person that owns it and say, can you create the lookalike based off that custom audience? And then can you share the lookalike with me? And then from the lookalike, you would then create a saved audience. So it can be done. I mean, it sounds complex in theory, but in practice, you can be doing these things in like 60 seconds once you've done it once. So there are ways of sharing assets pretty easily between ad accounts there. You can also share pixels as well. We've got a collaboration at the moment. I'm doing one of our $1,000 experiments with a video company. And so they're sharing their pixel with us so that we can go and track what's happening on their website when we run some ads for them and from their ad page. And that's where Business Manager makes it a lot easier to keep track of all these third-party assets there.
Great. When wanting to run paid partnerships with a brand, do I ask for advertising access? And does this mean I get access to their audiences as well?
So yes, you would basically get like advertiser rights to their ad account. So yes, you can then get access to everything that you need. So there's those different levels. You can have analyst, advertiser, or admin. So generally they would give you the third level, so the middle level, which is going to be the advertiser level. There is something as well if you are running, say there is a separate thing called branded content tool. This is where you sometimes get influencers, especially on Instagram. They might post their product on their page and then go and boost that. It needs to be clear that they are then advertising on behalf of a brand. And so there's then a tool in Facebook called branded content tool. So that's where they are using the ad account from like the brand, but they're putting it through their own influencer page. That's a whole other topic. Just Google Facebook branded content there, and you can find out all about that. But basically, if you are one of these influencers, you need to be 100% transparent that this is like a paid promotion. Otherwise, certainly in the US and UK, the advertising authorities can start cracking down on it there.
All right. Let me see here. A little bit off topic of Business Manager, but we have a question here. How valuable is a lookalike audience?
Okay, so we're going to be covering this more in hopefully our April webinar. We're going to be going through a lot of audiences there. Lookalikes are very valuable there. Facebook's got so much data on everybody, as we've seen in the news last year. Facebook can work out what people are watching videos, if they're clicking on things, if you're buying, how much you're buying. The Facebook pixels on millions of websites now. So lookalikes really good. The proviso there is it needs a good seed audience. It's that old adage of garbage in, garbage out. So if you give it a very poorly defined seed audience, it will be a poorly defined lookalike. If you give it a very good seed audience like purchasers or leads or purchasers that have spent over $100 or have purchased twice, they can be very powerful. And I think we touched on with another question there. There's some new, what Facebook call value-based lookalikes, where it can look at the recency of the purchases, the frequency of the purchases, and the value, and use all those signals together to create lookalikes which can just blow up your business. So not for every business, but I would say most businesses can see good value for lookalikes. I use lookalikes about 60% of the time and interests about 40% of the time there.
All right, so I think we have answered everyone. Any other questions that we have? Will this be available as a recording? Yes, yeah. We're going to go ahead and send that about an hour after, and you can also find that in the AdEspresso University under webinars and in our YouTube channel, John.
Excellent. So thank you everybody for joining us today. So any more questions afterwards, just email paul@adespresso.com or tweet @adespresso and we'll answer those. And finally, thank you, Toy, for joining me today.
No problem. Thanks, Paul.